Welcome. Another episode of Heart of God TV. I have someone I met 2 years ago at a Yankee game, courtesy of a good friend of a mutual friend of ours, Darnell Edmonds. We sat down, watched the game, and wound up talking to each other. And I found out that she was, one, very interesting, two, a go-getter, three, a funny, fantastic person. And I just wanted to introduce Kathleen Adams. What's up, Kathleen? How you feel?
Thanks so much for having me. How are you?
How you been?
Pandemic, but I'm still here.
Yes, pandemic, but you made it through. One thing you are entrepreneur. You are a giver, You're big time in philanthropy, and a Fordham grad.
Hey, Fordham in the house. Double Fordham, undergrad and grad.
So before we start with talking about your whole how you got into the whole entrepreneur world and the restaurant business, let's go back to Fordham. And why did you go to Fordham?
So that's a really interesting question. I actually think I am who I am because of that. So here's the story. So I grew up in Ohio, Shaker Heights, and went to an all-girls school for 15 years, preschool through 12th grade. And I want to say in 10th grade of high school, I applied to this program called the Island School in the Bahamas. I'm not a biology person, clearly did not get into this program. But at that time, when I applied and got denied, I was in Hawaii for this thing called the People of Color Conference. And I learned about another semester program in New York City through Columbia University called City Term. So I applied, got waitlisted, and somehow got in, and came to New York City at City Term, 11th grade of high school, second semester. And I was like, oh my God, I love New York. But at that time, I only applied to West Coast schools. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be in California. My brother was at Stanford, like that type of thing. When it came down to it, I was like, man, I really want to be in New York City. And my parents came to New York for some medical conference. And they're like, oh, you should check out Fordham. I'd never heard of Fordham in my entire life. I applied to NYU, applied to Columbia, the usual stuff. And last minute decided to come to Fordham, and that's how I ended up in New York City.
So can you talk about, now is your first time in New York City, you go to Fordham. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, so Fordham for me was super challenging, not academically, but socially. So I'm from Ohio, and I think, I'm not going to say Fordham was a tri-state school, but it's I remember on the weekends, parents would come get their kids on the weekends. No, my parents work. They're in Ohio. They didn't do my laundry on the weekends. I was an adult living in New York City. So I feel I really had to be self-sufficient. And at that point, I was, enrolled at the Rose Hill campus in the Bronx, lived on campus for a second. And then I was like, you know what? I need to live by myself. So I moved down to Hell's Kitchen and lived there for 8 years. College, grad school, post adult life, etc. But also at the same time, so Fordham is super, it is a progressive school, but it is a Jesuit institution. And I really didn't know anyone Catholic growing up. So it was a unique situation at hand. And freshman year of college, Fordham tried to kick me out of school. So I'm super into women's health issues, pro-sex, whatnot. And so I was passing out condoms on campus because Trojan was my sponsor. And I remember getting these letters from the dean of students, Chris Rogers, being you need to come meet with me. I was working at that time in Harlem teaching after school math. So I was after 12 noon, I was off campus. I was working, I had to hustle. I was making money, etc. And I remember it was right before the holiday break in December, and his assistant called me and was like, well, Dean Rogers needs to meet with you. I said, well, tell Dean Rogers to be a man enough and call me. He wants to meet. I was I'm busy. Next thing I know, I get a phone call from him. I'm meeting with him. He asked me, he says, well, Kathleen, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. He knew me because I was on student government, budget committee. I wrote the checks, let's put it that way. And he was like, so I hear you're passing out condoms on campus. And I was like, okay, and he's like, well, how many do you have? And I was like, enough for my own personal use. I had thousands of condoms. Literally, I was the hub of condoms, because you could not get condoms at Fordham because as a Jesuit institution, you can't get condoms. And at the bodega, they ask you, it's embarrassing. Is it big? Is it small? And I'm all about women's health issues, safe sex, etc. So Fordham, I learned how to advocate for myself. And once Dean Rogers continued to pry, ask questions, I was like, you know what? My parents hired a lawyer, and I was like, I don't feel confident or comfortable responding any further. Please speak to my legal counsel. And they had to drop it. So I ended up graduating undergrad and grad, but they tried to kick me out of school freshman year.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, you finished school, and obviously, you said your brother went to Stanford. You had a good upbringing. When did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because obviously you was doing a little bit in school.
Oh, I was a hustler. So growing up, I would it's so funny. I'll send it to you tonight, but I was in home in Ohio for the first time in 9 months, plus because of COVID. And I found this business card that I ordered from Vistaprint. Remember they would send you whatever, free shipping. And it said nanny, super experienced, bilingual. No, I really am not bilingual at all at that time, at least, put it that way. And no, so I would dog walk, I would babysit. I was, my first job was 13 turning 14. No, I'm sorry, 14 turning 15. I was a cashier at this place called Heinen's. It was a local grocery store. But I made $6.15 an hour in the union, so 15 cents more than minimum wage at the time. And as a cashier, you had to bring up, the products, but also bag. But there were young who were boys, and they would do parcel pickup. So you couldn't just take your cart to the car. You had to go through parcel pickup, and they would get tip money. So I was wait, so I'm doing 2 jobs, and I have to stay inside and not get tip money. And no woman had ever done parcel pickup. So I wrote this manifesto to the general manager, and I said, I want to be a bag girl. And to this day, I was the first bag girl in the history of Heinen's. And people actually remember me, which is crazy. This was over 20 years ago. But I was the girl who was I rang you up, but also at the same time with Mary Jane's and Smock, put your bags in your car.
That's crazy. So you always been a strategic planner.
100%. That's just that's my hustle.
Yeah. So how did that became your love? Why did you become a strategic? Did you follow your mom? Did you follow who was your mentor that you became this free spirit strategic planner?
So I would say professionally right now. So yes, I went back to work full time again in advertising as a strategic planner at Hale Holiday. Novartis is my account, and my client, and Cosmetics is my baby, I guess you could say. And I don't know. I feel as a Black woman and growing up as a Black person, we don't have a choice to not be strategic. You always have to think 10 steps ahead. In life, I always say, I'm here to play chess, not checkers. So it's you have to be strategic and see what your moves are going to be. Every move can be a power play or cannot be a power play. So, I like to step back, look at the full picture. Sometimes, for example, I was talking to a friend earlier today about some career stuff and was advising her on something. And it was she could have made a stink about something or been restrained and been okay, how can I get the outcome that I want if I do these moves? And so as a strategic planner, you have to think about how do you make life happen? How do you make deals happen? How do you bring that magic?
That's crazy. So when you obviously you've been in advertising for a long time. When did you know you wanted to go on your own? At what point in your life did you say, you know what, I want to get into the restaurant business?
So it's something I was actually always interested in for a really long time. Harlem specifically, I love Harlem. It's been a part of my story for so long. I actually wanted to work on a different concept and was trying to open it for a couple years and ended up actually not opening. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but COVID, post-COVID now, things are always changing. And I just knew I wanted to be a part of something that brought the community together, was sexy, had artwork, and was going to make a statement. And I feel through Angel of Harlem, we've been able to do that.
The restaurant business is tough. What research did you do for yourself to figure out, you know what, I want to get into this type of business?
So the funny story is most people don't realize, but I'm going to keep it real. So I started my first job in hospitality. I worked at Red Lobster Times Square. I was your waitress, slinging those Cheddar Bay biscuits and whatnot. And it was a really great learning lesson. It was high volume. The money was amazing. The clientele was great, also difficult at the same time. But it really taught me how to hustle, and it really taught me how to pay attention in terms of service standards. And service standards are your quintessential item that you need to be able to understand and absorb to operate. And then after that, I moved on, was at the Capital Grille Time Life Center. So, more the fine dining, high end aspect, getting to know some business power players, et cetera, who have been very instrumental in my hospitality career. But people always are like, oh, I want to be a restaurateur. It's sexy. No, it's not sexy at all. It's definitely not sexy at all. But wait some tables, make some drinks, bus, take trash out. You know what I'm saying? Really get into the nitty gritty. I feel 9 out of 10 things in hospitality life I could actually do and can do. But people need to understand is you're a guest or you're waiting tables.
So obviously the cool thing, it's funny because you said that I had a conversation today. I don't know if you ever heard of Junior Bridgman, he's a big franchise guy.
Okay.
He's in the NBA. He owns over 500 franchises. And when I met him years ago, one of the first things he said was his first franchise he did the French fries himself. He swept the floors himself.
Yep.
So he did everything himself. He said because he couldn't afford to hire other people.
Exactly.
So my thing is, it was that whole process for you. How much did that help you figure out, all right, I know I'm going to need this person. I'm going to have to hire this person. How long was that whole process before you opened up that restaurant?
Well, I came in with the mindset of it's not just me. There's a team of us. Let's put it that way. I've got, my partners are amazing. We're as thick as thieves, but we all bring different things to the table. So there are elements that a newbie would not be able to identify or isolate or pinpoint. But those of us who've been in the game and who've been around this industry, can say, oh, I should do this, or oh, I should not do that type of thing. No, you want to be as lean as you can be. So no, you don't, you need to multitask, have your employees multitask, be very nimble. And so if you're not hungry, if you don't want to put the work in, then don't be in this industry, in my opinion.
I was gonna say, how important is it for you to know the right people to work in a type of business like this, as far as your networking skills?
Oh, amazingly! It's the most important thing, in my opinion, is knowing the right people. Let's talk about post-COVID world or whatever we're in right now. It's hard to hire great people, but a lot of our staff has come back. So back of house and the kitchen, I don't think we've had that much turnover. Front of house a bit, but we have our key power players who are still doing their job, commanding their position in the best way as possible. But we're a family oriented team. We love our staff. We are all family, but not every business operates how we do.
So, you go into this business, and when do you tell yourself, you know what, I'm ready to expand?
So that's actually something that I was trying to do, I want to say 2-3 years ago. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to future opportunities, but I really wanted to create a similar concept in Shaker Heights, Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from. Maybe I'm blessed that it ended up not happening because of, the craziness of the past 18 months plus. Who knows? You have to feel secure and make sure that whatever part 2 of your business makes sense and can reflect well on the business. But, we're not a franchise. We're a small business that has its own essence. So Harlem specifically, Harlem has the best crowd ever, the best vibe ever and whatnot. And could I say that that essence and aspect can happen in Cleveland, Ohio? I'm hoping it could happen, but I'm not quite sure. I can't recreate the magic everywhere. It's really about the community. So, you know, you don't want to feel like a franchise. You want to feel like you're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, well, when you say well-oiled, one of your favorite mottos is taking care of business.
Oh, TCB is my favorite motto ever. So my grandfather, who passed away 3 years ago, really instilled that aspect in me in terms of TCB. So like I TCB in everything that I do. If I can't TCB, I'm gonna bow out gracefully and let you know. But like TCBing is super important. And I think that young people today specifically need to really embrace that ethos of taking care of business, being consistent, showing up, being honest, like putting it all on the plate and not just saying like, oh, I have these followers, or, oh, this or that. No, when like the going gets tough, roll up your sleeves and get dirty.
So what would you say is the toughest thing you had to face opening up a business or dealing with, or going, during COVID that you had to overcome that you're still either overcoming or you overcame already?
I'd have to say probably in terms of like my personal life, I've gone through some stuff in the past year that I don't really want to talk about.
No, we don't have to. Just your business.
But that impacts the business because I'm like a people person. I'm outer facing, and so obviously my customers are important to me. I'm important to my customers. If I can't always step up to the plate based upon personal things going on in my life or whatnot, I can see how that directly impacts the business. And I'm happy that like I'm back around. I'm vibrant. I'm vivacious. I'm Kathleen again. But when you go through some tough things, you gotta acknowledge it, and it's hard to do that sometimes on a public platform.
All right, so now you also have you have a give back to the Kathleen Adams brand, which is Mama's Hip Hop Kitchen.
Yes.
Can we talk about why you started it, when you started it, and what's it all about?
Yeah, so I co-founded this when I was at Fordham University, I want to say like about 14, 15 years ago. And the story that I was talking about earlier about the condoms plays into this. So my mom's a gynecologist, and my dad just retired last week, used to be chief of medicine. So I grew up in a medical household where like sex, sexuality, etc. was discussed. And like I said, when I went to Fordham, that was kind of like you don't talk about that type of thing. And, Fordham University is in the Bronx. And the Bronx, especially the South Bronx, is the poorest congressional district of the United States and has one of the highest rates of HIV as well. Hip hop was also started in the South Bronx. And I love hip hop. So I was like, how can we like channel these energies? How can we like bring awareness to these really important issues? So let's do it through edutainment, education plus entertainment. And so most people would do like conferences or pass out pamphlets, but I was like, no, let's talk to the people on the level where they want to be approached at. So Mama's Hip Hop Kitchen, I thought it was going to be like a one-time thing, like 75 friends would come, cool, check mark, I've done it. No, 500 plus people came year one at like a rundown high school or auditorium in the Chelsea section of Manhattan. And we were like, okay, like we have something going on. So year two, we got invited to be in the Bronx and host us community college. It's been an amazing partner for all these years. And we've been able to grow 1,000 plus people every year. We've had Rod Digga, you name it. Like we're on the list of like who's who in hip hop. We're both building the narrative of women in hip hop. Oftentimes we're seen as like the hook girl or like, someone behind the scenes, but no, like women command the microphone. Women are powerful. So through our MCs, B-girls, DJs, graffiti artists, you name it, we've done it. And we have like a super powerful collective of all women. And I'm so happy that like MTV has featured us in MTV's Made. Like we've done it, you name it. It's been my passion project, my baby, my love. And I'm so happy that we just celebrated year 14 with a virtual series because of COVID, but looking forward to prospering even further.
So you've done this for 14 years. Right now you're doing a virtual series. How many people you think you have impacted over the 14 years?
Over 10,000 plus. Like it's crazy. And it's like people like will email me or reach out being like, oh my God, I remember this or remember that. Or like, I met my best friends through coming to your show. Like I feel like the impact through Momma's Kitchen has been phenomenal, and I never would have predicted such a passion project that my partner Lateri and I had would turn out to be as strong as it is now.
So what's the overall goal for the brand?
Change the way that people view women, especially women of color in hip hop, and lower the rates of HIV in communities of color. So I want safe sex to be a conversation topic. I want, condom use, contraceptive use, whatever methods you want. I want it to be a comfortable conversation. And lots of times, we as people of color, we don't always talk about safe sex, but what are we doing at night? We're doing the do. So why not have it be a part of the natural conversation, but also at the same time, reclaiming a narrative. Sometimes white women were leading or being seen as the leaders, but no, we as women of color have been involved in the pro-choice movement, abortion rights, etc. And it's important for our voices to be heard.
And then as far as an entrepreneur, where do you think the Kathleen Adams brand goes?
I don't know. It's like, I feel like so many doors have opened to me recently, and who knows? Like, I'm enjoying this podcast. So like, we're co-hosts, who knows? I don't know. I want to inspire people. I want to grow businesses. We'll see what's next. Like, hospitality definitely is a lot of work, but who knows what my next investment will be, or my next, project will be. I'm just excited to be able to speak to people. So hi to all y'all in the virtual atmosphere in the world, and tell my story and see how other people grow, blossom, and flourish.
So as I would love to know, as an entrepreneur, how do you look at investments? When people come to you and say, hey, can you invest in this? Or can you look at this? How do you look at that?
So I believe in mezzanine financing. So mezzanine financing is a mechanism where you don't actually have to give equity away. You're essentially borrowing money from someone. You give them a return on investment over a certain period of time, and they get no equity. It's kind of like a whisper deal that a lot of white people do this all the time. So a wealth manager or whatnot, in terms of these deals. So I can't quote what the interest rate will be, but it's a decent interest rate. You normally don't want to invest in a mezzanine financing project if you don't believe in the project or the person. But to make 12% return in 18 months, etc., and have no risk if the company goes zero to no risk if the company goes bankrupt, it's a better power play. Yes, you could do the equity side, but as somebody who likes to not give away those types of aspects, it's a great move. So I would say people should get involved in those types of conversations, but also at the same time, they're sold in certain types of bundles. So you're supposed to have your emergency fund of 6 months or whatever in the bank, and you make no interest on that. So have your emergency fund, have your index funds. In my opinion, index funds are the best way to invest. Just make some good money and then cash it out, minus capital gains. But try to get involved in these types of deals. I would say you need at least 50 to 100,000. Not most people don't always have that, but some of them say you could partner with a friend, bring in 25, they bring in 25, whatever it needs to be, and just be in that environment.
So how do you put yourself into this environment? Are you always getting calls? Are you always do you always look around? Are you afraid to? One thing that I noticed when we did meet, you wasn't afraid to talk, which was dope. And and I felt the great energy sitting next to you. And can you explain where'd you get that from?
I would say so. My grandmother, she's alive. She's 90, turned 90 in February, and we're talkers. I knew that, I don't know, I wasn't that academically gifted as a young person. I had a personality, but did not have the grades. And I knew that my gift of gab would take me somewhere. And I am really good at connecting with people and reading a room. So I would say that that side of me has paid off. Like, you know, some people get straight A's, some people can work a cocktail party. For me, I'm like, I'm a trained architect who's never practiced, who could talk about anything in the world. Bring me into a room and a deal will be done. But, you know, you want to find someone who's a mathematician? Great. That's not me. But, like, I'm about to make some stuff happen, make a deal happen, and it always happens.
So Kathleen Adams is the deal maker.
Exactly, the deal maker.
So what would you tell a 21-year-old Kathleen Adams now?
I would say, so one thing I wish I took advantage of more, but that was just me. I don't feel like I had like the typical college experience. Like I didn't go to like senior night or all those other activities. Like I was like living in Hell's Kitchen, working, doing different things, being overbooked and overscheduled. I wish it doesn't really mean anything these days, but I wish I could be like, look back and be like, you know, I went to my senior dance, or I went to this, or I went to that. Like it would be nice just to like feel like I was a young person for a second, but I feel like I kind of bypassed that story of or that stage that should have happened. But that's not a negative thing I'm saying, but on the positive side, I was around lots of older adults who absorbed me into their lives. It was in situations in a positive aspect that have allowed me to be where I'm at now. So it's a trade-off, but like it would have been nice to have done that. But I also would say like I spent too much random money at like Forever 21, like fast clothes that expire quickly. Like, yeah.
So what would you say the two questions is your worst business decision and your best business decision so far up to this point in your life?
Best business decision has been to get to know the people that I work with, collaborate, invest, etc., on a deeper level, and that's been the best decision. Worst, I would say never let your significant other or whomever know the ins and outs of your business. Take your conference calls in a different room, walk outside, whatnot, but keep it private. Love and business side has to be separate. Jealousy occurs, manipulation occurs. I will never, ever moving forward allow anyone on the romantic side to know the ins and outs of my financial life or hear those conversations.
And what would you say the importance of having a mentor?
Oh, the best. A mentor is there to guide you, to rub your back when you cry, when you fall, whatnot. Like, find a good mentor. So there's a mentor and there's a sponsor. Those are two different things. I've got tons of mentors and I have a couple sponsors. A sponsor will talk about you in a room that you're not in and make sure you get to the next level. So have a sponsor, but be very judicious about who your sponsor is, but also keep it very professional. Like your sponsor doesn't need to know your professional, like your personal life. Your sponsor doesn't need to know any of the drama. Your sponsor is there to really like pull you up and make sure like you're elevated and make sure people know who you are. Also, at the same time, I'd say another piece of advice post the question that you just asked is I'm very philanthropic and be intentional. Don't be a fake philanthropist. Like be about what you're about because it's super important. Like I love Apollo Theater, love them, heart and soul, will do anything for them. Also acknowledge how important Apollo is to Black culture, Harlem in general, etc. And so, you know, when someone sees or an institution sees like your genuine interest and passion, they will make sure to always elevate you at the same time. So, you know, start at the volunteer and work your way up from there. But like, it's important to really give back in an intentional way where like, it might be a one-way street for a second, but sometimes it can be a two-way street, but like be there and be in that room.
So how would, if people want to sign up to your not-for-profit
Yep.
or support it, How can they?
So yeah, our website is so it's called Mama's Hip Hop Kitchen, and the website is mhhk.org. And you can also email mhhk@mhhk.org.
They can follow you.
Or follow me, Kathleen Adams 56 in private, but like if you send me a little message, when you can request somebody, I'll accept. Or our IG for Mama's Hip Hop Kitchen is at Hip Hop Kitchen, and for Angel of Harlem is at Angel of Harlem NYC. At Angel of Harlem NY. And if I'm not responding, a team member is responding. But like you just say like, hey, Kathleen, blah 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 blah. But would love your all support, and yeah.
And and people in the restaurant is located
At 2272 Frederick Douglass at 122nd Street.
All
so
right.
Right in the heart of Harlem, by the Apollo Theater, and yeah. But wait, I'm actually gonna take a screenshot of us real quick so I can post it on my IG. Right? So, hi. Oh, come on now. I have to have my IG story be lit to like my long day, but
I appreciate your time. We definitely got to connect. You can stay on for a second as soon as I jump off the end of the podcast, but I definitely appreciate you. You're somebody that, like I said, shout out to Darnell for, putting us next to each other during the Yankee game, and continue success.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot.
All right.